welcome back. So this is module number 4, color and dye. So we got all the fibers, we got the carpet construction. How is it dyed? We got fiber dyeing methods of all different kinds, and we're going to learn all about those in this module. So let's get right into it. Just make sure you give us a thumbs up if you're getting any value out of this. Make sure you subscribe so you get the additional content that's coming out next. So let's get right into it and learn how carpet is dyed.
Welcome to Professional Carpet Cleaning course, Module 4, Color and Dye. A professional carpet cleaner should have a good understanding of how color works, as well as how it's applied to the carpet during the manufacturing process. This is going to help you discern if there are any color issues with the carpet. There can be several types of problems that you'll come up against during cleaning and spotting different types of carpets, and color issues can be among those problems. So first we'll cover the different types of colors, and this is pretty basic. We start with the primary colors. Most everybody knows as red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. Secondary colors are when you combine equal parts of your primaries, you get a secondary color. So those secondaries are green, purple, and orange. Intermediate colors, these are going to be on either side of the secondary colors on this wheel. Combine any secondary and primary together and you get an intermediate color. Tertiaries are browns, blacks, grays. Basically, if you mix equal parts of your primaries together, you're going to get black. So if you mix your red, yellow, blue together, you'll get black in different shades. So you can have grays to blacks. Mix unequal parts, you're going to get your browns. There's two types of colorants that are used in the manufacturing of carpet. There's going to be dyes, there's going to be pigments. Dyes are soluble in water or a dry solvent. Pigments are not soluble. They have to be melted, they're combined into a polymer, and then when they're melted in the extrusion of the carpet fibers, it comes out a colored fiber from the start. Dyes have to have certain properties in order to make them effective to be used in the manufacturing of carpet. They have to be color fast, and as we talked back in previous modules, certain carpets like a nylon 6 has a tendency to want to fade. It didn't want to hold on to its color, so that became a problem. So the more color fast, the better. We want it to resist fading from sunlight as well as crocking and bleeding. Crocking is if you're agitating the carpet and it's losing dye through agitation. Bleeding is a problem that if the carpet gets wet either by chemical process or by just water, sometimes if you're dealing with Oriental rugs, even just water can cause a bleed where the carpet color will just run. So it'll just release from the carpet fiber and it'll be a loose dye. That is a problem you don't want to have to deal with. When we're dealing with Oriental rugs, you want to make sure that the rug is not going to bleed on you. Once it bleeds, you can't recover it. There's 5 types of dyes we're going to cover. One is acid dyes. This is the most common. Almost all carpet today is, at least most nylon carpet today, is acid dyed. It's also used with wool and silk, but for what we're going to be covering, it's usually going to be a nylon carpet that we're cleaning in homes, although there is a significant amount of wool that you'll probably run into as well. There's basic dyes. These dyes are ionic, so they're going to have a positive charge. They're typically used to dye acrylic and the modified nylon, which we call nylon 6,6, as well as polyester fibers. There's direct dyes. These are used to dye cellulosic fibers such as cotton or rayon and linen. And then we have vat dyes, also used for coloring cotton and rayon, although it is used to dye nylon as well. There's dispersed dyes. Dispersed dyes are non-ionic. They're applied by suspending it in a heated water and surfactant mixture. Surfactants are just what we call wetting agents. They're designed to take the surface tension away from water, so it's designed to allow the water to go into fiber it's being applied to easier or better. It's used to dye typically polyester, triaxa, and acrylic. Occasionally nylon, but not that often. As far as dye methods, there's 2 basic dye methods that are used. There's going to be pre-dyed or yarn dyeing. So this is when we're going to dye the actual yarn before it's stitched into the primary backing of the carpet. As well, we're going to have post-dyeing, which is after the yarns are stitched into the backing. They're called gray goods. This is the dyeing of the gray goods. So it's dyeing the gray goods after it's been stitched into the primary backing. The pre-dyeing or yarn dyeing methods are package dyeing, space dyeing, solution dyeing, stock dyeing, and skin dyeing. And the post dyeing methods or the gray goods dyeing is going to be Beck or piece dyeing, differential dyeing and print dyeing. And then as well we have continuous dyeing. So we'll go through these one at a time. So first of the pre-dyeing methods, we have package dyeing. The yarn is going to be wound onto a perforated form or a cone. And then you're going to have a whole stack of these that are loaded onto a holder. You can see there in the picture on the top left, those are already dyed colors or yarns stacked onto the holder. They're lowered into these vats or machines, and they're under pressure and under heat. The dyes are forced into dye sites of the carpet. Once the yarns are done and they're dyed, they're rewound back onto their original cones, and they're ready to use to manufacture carpet. Next, we have space dyeing. This method is basically used to create yarns that have various colors, and you can see that in those cones off to the right-hand side there. Those are single yarns, but they have various colors through them. It involves using a dyeing machine that can apply several colors or shades onto the same piece of yarn. They're used in a large percentage of commercial applications. A lot of the level loop carpets will have a space dyed nylon fiber in them, and you can see the different shades as they're stitched into the back of the backing. They don't have to worry about using several different shades or colors. They can just use the same spools and they'll come out with a finished product that's multicolor. Next, we have solution dyeing. Back when we covered the different yarns, you'll remember that olefin is one of the products that's always solution dyed. It's not the only one. There's also a lot of solution dyed nylon being made, as well as other fibers. This is a unique method where it's melting these polymer chips that already have the pigments or dyes inside the polymer chip. So as it's melted and extruded through the extruder, there's a picture of it on the right hand side, it comes out a pre-colored yarn. What's nice about these yarns is the color's all the way through, so it's not going to be affected by bleach or anything like that. The color is very color fast. You're not going to have a problem with it fading or losing dye at any point. So remember, all polypropylene, which is olefin fibers, are solution dyed, but there is a growing share of nylon as well that is solution dyed. Next, we have stock dyeing. This method is primarily used to dye wool and synthetic staple fibers. If you remember, the staple fibers are small fibers 6 to 8 inches long. Using this method, these fibers are put into this vat prior to spinning. It's then cooked under pressure for several hours. Then after it's removed from this tank, it's then sent through a steam chamber to set the dye. If this dye is employed to dye a continuous filament after this process is performed, it's typically going to be cut afterwards and made into the staple fibers. After the fibers are dyed using this method, they're going to be blended together, and that makes for a more consistent or uniform color throughout the batch of yarn. Then once it's all done, it's just going to be wound and made into yarns, and it's ready for manufacturing in new carpet. Next, we have skin dyeing. It's similar to the stock dyeing, except that it's going to utilize a spun unplied yarn. So it's already made into yarns, but it's undyed. These yarns are known as skins, and therefore the name skin dyeing. The yarn is taken off of its spool, mounted on a rack, submerged in hot dye for a certain amount of time, and then after the dyeing is done, it's ready to be plied and made into a finished yarn. Now we're going to cover some of the post-dyeing techniques. So we're dyeing the gray goods in these dyeing methods. First is Beck or piece dyeing. So in this method, we're dyeing the gray goods. The yarn is already stitched into the secondary backing, and we're going to dye the whole thing. Basically stitching up to 200 yards of carpet. So we're going to sew the ends together to form a big loop of carpet, and then we're going to run it through this machine. The machine rotates that loop continuously through the dye bath or the Beck, and we're going to keep it rolling through that bath until it reaches the desired color that the manufacturer is going for. And remember, using specifically treated yarns or chemically treated yarns, a manufacturer can achieve several different shades of color by running it through a single dye bath. Next, we're going to have continuous dyeing. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have the gray goods, undyed, and as it progresses through the machine, we're going to see that it comes out on the other end a dyed product. As it proceeds through this machine, it's going to run through different sections. So it's first go through the dye bath. It's going to color it. Then we're going to steam set the dye. Then we're going to run it through wash boxes, and they're used to rinse the excess dye out, as well as anything from the machine that may have made its way onto the carpet. And then at the end, we're going to dry the product, so as it comes out the other end, it's totally dry and ready to have its secondary backing glued on. There's a couple other post-dyeing techniques, and both of these are going to be used to create different patterns, different shades in the carpet from the same dye bath. In differential dyeing, the fibers are treated chemically before they're stitched into the backing to make the gray goods. When the carpet is run through the dye bath, each yarn type is going to have a different affinity for the dye, so you're going to have a different pattern. And cross dyeing also is creating a multicolor look using fibers of different affinities for dye. And then lastly, we have print dyeing. This is a pretty cool method. If you ever have a chance to go see a printing facility, I suggest that you do it. It's very interesting. You're going to have a swatch of gray goods or a roll of gray goods on one end. It's going to come out and it's going to come through this machine that basically looks like a very large inkjet printer. And as the printer goes across the carpet, as you can see in this piece here, as it comes across, it usually makes 2 passes and it rolls out the other end of the machine a finished printed carpet with anything they want to print onto it. It's really interesting. It's very quick. They don't have to stop the machine whatsoever to change the pattern. It's just a matter of putting in a different code. The code tells the computer what to print, just like you would on your home inkjet. It instantly changes to create whatever the manufacturer has an order for. Really interesting. It is the least color fast of all the dye methods, and it's easy to tell if you're dealing with a printed carpet. If you just get down on your hands and knees, split the fibers apart. If the dye isn't all the way to the base of the carpet and it's only coloring the tips, or maybe a third, 2/3 of the yarn, you're dealing with a printed carpet. You may want to check if it's color fast. Sometimes these dyes can be loose, so you might just want to give a quick check. And that's it for dyeing methods. We'll see you in the next module.